أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته everyone.
وعليكم السلام.
I would like to start by praying and doing a dua for all the people who have been affected around the world. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the shifa, will return them to Him with all the happiness and safety, inshallah. So the reason why this week we're doing the live we're not doing a live week, we're only doing the online version, is because, we have to take the advice of the people of knowledge, whether that be the Islamic knowledge, like the people who have told us that we need to listen to the scientists or even listen to doctors. They've advised us not to gather. Inshallah, that we are following that advice and we're doing that as part of our ibadah, inshallah. But hopefully from next week onward we can continue with the live sessions, inshallah. They're definitely much easier, I can tell you. It's very nerve-wracking speaking to a camera, but inshallah this will pass and we will be able to continue. But in any case, welcome to all of you guys who are trying the online form for the first time. Inshallah it won't be that difficult for us to get used to it. So as we do every week, we would like to start this program with dua and faraj so that we can send its thawab to our beloved Imam. So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن وليك من حجة الحسن صلوات عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So inshallah today we will continuing with Hadith al-Nafs by Imam Ali alayhi salam. Last week we spoke about one of the souls, the planted soul, and today inshallah we will continue and speak about the second soul, which is the animalistic soul. So what the Imam says about the soul is والحسية الحيوانية لها 5 قوى: السمع والبصر والشم والذوق واللمس، ولها خاصتان: الرضا والغضب، وانبعاثها من القلب. So the English translation for this is that the animalistic soul has 5 tools, meaning hearing, sight, sense of smell, taste, and the ability to feel, and has 2 characteristics: contentment and anger, and it originates from the heart. So last time we spoke about what a characteristic and what a tool is, and we gave the example of this pancake making robot to explain this concept further. But inshallah today we want to start from the origin. We'll go chronologically down. So we'll start with the origin and talk about the characteristics and then finally the tools, inshallah. So Imam Ali alayhi salam says that the origin of the soul is the heart. Alright? So what do we mean by the heart? The biological heart is, starts developing in a child at around 22 weeks, which is quite early in the development. However, this soul's onset is around 4 months. So there's this discrepancy in the time. And the reason for that is this soul is we're not talking about the biological heart. We're talking about a different form of heart. Alright? And so around the 4-month mark, the child has this spatial awareness inside the womb, and it starts to recognize its mother's heartbeat and starts to form this attachment to the mother, attachment to the womb. So here we're really talking about this heart of feelings, this source of our emotions as such. And if we look at the Quran, it kind of gives us this hint that we're not talking about the biological heart. So this is Surah Al-Kahf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن في ذلك لذكرى لمن كان له قلبا أو ألقى السمع وهو شهيد. So indeed, that in that is a reminder for whoever has a heart or listens when he is present. So here there is this option, right? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that there is perhaps people that don't have a heart. And we've heard this statement, this person is heartless. And it's suggesting that they have lost all sense of sympathy and empathy and feeling. And we know that in Islam, there is this ability to reach this state when you do so much bad, this badness accumulates upon the heart, which it leads to the heart turning into stone. And once this heart is stone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's no way of accessing that heart in the Quran. So that's what we mean. This heart, it's not the literal heart, but it's this origin of feelings, the origin of love and hope, even fear. Okay? And it's important as well, as a disclaimer, that this heart and the animalistic soul, they may sound similar in terms of what they do, but we need to recognize that they're completely different things. The heart is a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. It is pure until we decide not to, put bad onto it. But it is originally pure, and it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, we'll talk about the heart, that's something separate, in future lectures. But the animalistic soul is this soul that we're going to talk about today, inshallah. And it has a completely different purpose from the heart. So, moving from the origins, we're going to go to the characteristics. And these two characteristics are anger, ghadab, and contentment, rida. Alright, and it seems odd. Anger we associate with badness, right? It's this really bad thing that people need to get rid of. And then contentment is this really, really good thing. So why do we have these two opposites in ourselves? And the thing is, if you have one without the other, or a wrong balance of the two, it's not good for you. So it is about this balancing act between them. Sometimes when we think about a balancing act, we're thinking about 50-50, but it's not the case here. It's definitely not 50-50. We definitely need, in this day and age, we need more contentment than anger, but this differs with individuals and with what we require both these characteristics for. But we'll talk about each of them separately so that we can see why perhaps we need to work with them together, right? So we'll look at anger first. And anger is usually defined as this strong feeling of being annoyed or displeasured, and it's associated with being hostile and aggressive, right? But what we see in the animal kingdom, say, or in general, it's anger is this defense mechanism or impulse so that we can, defend against any threats or attacks that come to us. It's this flight response that we have. That's really important for the survival of any creature. So that's the reason why we have it. We have this part of us which is animal. Our body is an animal. And so we need this to be able to survive. But we'll look at the Quran, what the Quran says about anger. Alright? And this is from Al-Ansari. الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين, who spend in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during ease and hardship, and who restrain anger, and who pardon the people. And Allah loves the doers of good. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that to be able to be, or a prerequisite of being the doers of good, we need to be able to restrain our anger. If we don't have anger, how do we restrain it? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes gives us these gifts as challenges or tests for us, so that once we're able to fully control these, we can reach higher stages and become closer and closer to it. And anger is one of these, right? It's really important to notice though that the Arabic word used here is غيظ, not غضب as it was used in the hadith. But both غيظ and غضب are translated to anger in English, and it's one of these things where, English can put all these terms together. However, in Arabic they have two distinct meanings. So غيظ means the feeling of anger which is not acted upon, whereas غضب is the feeling of anger which is acted upon. So غيظ becomes this prerequisite for غضب. So you feel غيظ, and this translates to غضب in your actions. Alright? So it's important in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us it's not only important to control your actions, but here you also need to control this thought or this feeling of anger before it manifests itself, which is a very difficult thing to do. But inshallah, one day we'll be able to reach that and become the doers of good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about. But here we're going to go back to the animalistic soul and talk about ghadab, anger. And if we look at psychology, there are multiple types of anger. It's not only one thing. And these are the 4 types that we're going to talk about. So the anger which we direct to ourselves, the anger which we direct to others, disappointment, and constructive anger. It's really important to note that with these different types of anger, the feeling isn't changed. It's the same feeling, but what is the thing which we're concentrating or referring this feeling to is different, and that changes how we act upon the feeling. Alright? So we'll talk about each of these briefly and give examples so that we can better understand how these look like in our lives. So anger directed at oneself. I'll give an example of, you're doing an interview. It may be for a job, maybe for university. I mean, a lot of us have been through this. It's a very stressful situation because you're put on the spot and you're being asked these questions, and these questions will eventually determine, are there to present yourself to someone else. They're going to determine your characteristics to this other person, and you're trying to impress this person, right? Because you want to get the job, or you want to get into this university. So your answers are going to be constructed in a way such that you're always giving a positive outlook to this person about yourself. So what if, but because it's stressful, sometimes you do slip up. And what if you say something which at the end you regret? You're like, oh no, I shouldn't have said, given this example because this example shows that I'm weak, for example, or that I'm not a hard worker, but I'm a super hard worker kind of thing. So you're going to come out angry. Angry at who? Yourself. And the reason that you get angry at yourself is because this type of anger, it threatens how you present yourself. Okay, so the anger directed at yourself always comes about when how you present to other people is being threatened. Alright? And then we come to the second form, which is anger directed at others. This is what we commonly associate with anger, right? This physical kind of anger. It could be verbal abuse, cyber, and bullying if it's continuous, and cyberbullying as well. And these all stem from this response to an external threat or attack. So we always, if something attacks us, we get defensive. And that's when this anger towards others comes from, alright? So if you guys are getting bullied, know that it's because the person who's bullying you feels threatened by you. Maybe it's because you're super smart, you're super beautiful, alright? Or because they don't have this faith that, you associate yourself with and you have this love for, and they feel like they have a meaningless life, right? They're jealous of that, and that's why they have this anger towards you, right? But it's not right to have this anger towards other people. And if you're on the receiving end of this anger, you'll know that it's not right, or it's not nice, alright? And the last one is disappointment. We usually don't associate disappointment with anger, but if you kind of strip away the reasons and you look at just the feeling alone, you'll see it's the exact same feeling, alright? And so I'll give a very relatable example, alright? You have a test coming up, so you spent all weekend studying for this test. You're cramming all the information, alright? You're feeling pretty good. You feel like you've got, most of this content under your belt, and you take the test and you're like, they asked about all the content I revised. This is good. Should be able to do really, really well. But then you get the results and you didn't do as well as you expected, right? You will feel disappointed. You will feel like, all this effort that I've put in hasn't been represented, right? So disappointment usually comes when your confidence or someone else's confidence has been, or expectations of self-worth has been attacked. And it's important here, with the other two forms of anger, there was one directed at the self and one directed at others. Disappointment can be directed at yourself and at others. So this example shows how you can direct disappointment at yourself, but an example of disappointment at others is, for example, a mother and her child is being a really big distraction at the park and he's annoying other kids. Then, the mother may feel disappointed in that sense because she's like, I've taught him better. Why isn't he doing what I've taught, kind of thing, right? With all these feelings though, they're negative, alright? All these forms of anger are negative. The only form of anger which is positive is this constructive anger, alright? And as we said, these feelings are all the same, but how we act on them is what's going to be different. So constructive anger is this use of anger to motivate yourself to remove obstacles from your life and proceed and progress. So if we look at all the three situations or examples we gave, we can now look at how we can turn this anger, either if it's directed at ourselves, at others, or if it's disappointment, how we can turn that into constructive anger. So in the first example with the interview, say you got the job. Now it's your time at your job to work hard. Show this person that you are a hard worker. Just because you gave this one example which made you seem like you don't work hard, doesn't mean that's the case. Prove them wrong. So that's a way of getting over that situation and using the anger as a motivator to do better. In the second example, with the physical kind of abuse and bullying, you can either learn to, respond to it calmly, be able to ensure that it doesn't affect you by ignoring it completely, or seeking help from someone else. Alright? Getting someone else involved so that they can help solve the situation. And then, in the disappointment thing, which I feel like is the one that we can mostly relate to, is you feel disappointed about your results. That's going to make you work harder for your next test, right? You revisit your study strategies and pick the ones that really help you and you benefit from. Cramming is definitely not a solution, so you start to spread your revision over the entire week before instead of just the weekend. And you also, it's not all about constant study as well. You start to incorporate and make sure that study is a flow in your life and not taking over your life as well. And that you have other things that you're doing as well. So that's all important. And this is all part of constructive anger. Alright, so moving now from anger, we're going to go to contentment. So the dictionary defines contentment as the state of happiness and satisfaction. And I mean, this definition really doesn't touch the surface of the word rida. But in the context of the animalistic soul, this is enough. Because the rida of the animalistic soul is a taster that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us to this ultimate rida that we're trying to reach. And inshallah, we will be talking about this rida in the Divine Universal Soul lecture further on in the series. But for this soul, this form of contentment is, it's where we'll stop by, and this is what we'll use for now, inshallah. But how does contentment look like? Like, we all know how anger looks like, but the thing is, with contentment, there's no true way of saying this is how it looks like, because it differs between every individual. Kind of like anger, but anger, there are certain symptoms, let's say, whereas with contentment, it's very difficult to identify. So some people are very happy, and that's their sign of contentment. Some people are patient, and others are just simply satisfied. Alright? And all of these are completely fine. Alright? But the thing is, as we said at the beginning, it's about a balancing act between these two. So we've showed that there is a good side to anger. But could there be a bad side to contentment? So we're going to give two examples here. The first example is when anger is bad and how contentment can help to reduce that. And then we're going to show the flip example, where contentment is bad and anger, constructive anger, it'll be useful and help us to control that. So with the first example, alright, we have a happy married couple, alright? And it's always important in a relationship that you're open and that you have this communication going and that you have this contentment with each other, correct? So let's say one day the husband comes back from work and they're super annoyed from work, really, really angry with something that they have done. You know, something which has completely shattered how they present themselves. So talking about type 1 anger. If the wife responded with anger because she didn't recognize that this anger was not directed at her, it was directed at the gentleman himself, then she's simply escalating the situation because she is leading on or causing the husband to shift where this anger becomes, and it becomes directed at her. But if she takes the approach of being content, maybe sitting down, asking questions, trying to calm down, or simply just being patient with it, waiting for him to calm down, then he's gonna, come back and he'll be remorseful and be like, sorry, I don't know what came over me, it wasn't directed at you. This form of communication is really, really good and healthy in a relationship, alright? And this way, he will feel remorseful, because if it was, if the wife did stimulate this argument, and he did redirect this anger, he's not going to feel remorseful because you started it, alright? Whereas here, you didn't do anything. So, because you're taking the blunt of the anger, he will feel remorseful. So, keep that in mind, alright? With the flip side, however, let's say there was this boy and he was hanging out with a bunch of friends and they went to like grilled or something, and he ordered a burger. He didn't know this burger, the meat wasn't halal, say, and he ate it. Once he ate it, he found out that it wasn't halal. If he was content and he's like, oh, okay, alhamdulillah, shukr, I was hungry and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was giving me this, it's not haram if I didn't know, then what's it to say that when he goes to another place and he doesn't know, that he'll keep eating haram food? Nothing's going to stop. So if he had this anger in himself, if he's like, oh damn, I should have gone and asked first, I shouldn't have just eaten this burger, it's going to help him, it's going to motivate him that every time he goes to a place now, he's going to ask, is this meat in your burger halal? So this is how they both work together, and why we require them both, so that we can survive in this world, alright? Now we're going to move on to the tools, alright? So the tools, they're the 5 senses. They're our sight, our hearing, our smell, our touch, and our taste. And it's important to recognize that when we're talking about these, we're not talking about the organs. It's not the eyes or the ears that we're talking about. We're talking about the actual senses, alright? And the reason why these senses are so important is because they help us navigate this world. This world is a material world, and we require material senses, or, not sensors as in like, sensors, yes, sensors, not senses, to be able to understand or receive information from the world. Sorry about this tongue twister, guys. But there's no point of having sensors if we have nothing to do with them. Alright, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also given us motivation for survival. Alright? This motivation for survival is called desire. Alright? If we didn't want to eat food, what is stopping us? If we didn't know that we needed to eat food to survive, let's say we were a child, a toddler, and we didn't want to eat food, we won't. Correct? If we didn't like food, we won't eat. And that's not going to help us to survive, is it? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this love for food, so that when we at the beginning stages, we don't realize that we need food to survive, we will still eat. And this continues with all our desires. They're very important, alright? But desires are also a double-edged sword, because they can, we generally associate desires with bad things, and the reason is they can become very controlling. Very controlling if they're not controlled. Alright? And so, it's because they come with limitations, and we're going to explain these limitations now with an exercise, which is going to be very difficult to do online, but let's give it a shot. I'm going to ask questions. I want you to answer these by yourselves. Look at this apple. How are you going to describe this apple? What do your eyes see? What do you think it'll taste like? What do you think it'll feel like? Alright? Give me a few seconds. Alright, so, what if I told you that this apple was completely infested with worms? You wouldn't recognize it from the outside, but that's the truth. So there's this difference between how something appears, its appearance, and what it actually is, its reality. And this is this important concept that we're trying to introduce, the difference between the appearance of something and the reality of something, alright? So last time in the Plant Excel lecture, we gave you an example of this amazing looking cake, alright? But here, we've given you a clue. This is a bare butter chocolate cake. You wouldn't recognize it from how it looks like, but that's the reality of it. And we know that the reality of alcohol from last week is it's fire, alright? So our senses, when they see this cake, our eyes are going to be like, oh, it looks rich. Our nose is like, it smells chocolatey. And our mouth is like, oh, it starts to water, it wants to have it. However, the reality is this is really not good for us, alright? So that's the difference. And Shaitan has the ability to manipulate the appearance of something so that we disregard its reality. And how he's able to do that is because he is the master of illusions. And we're not only talking about optical illusions as such, but what we're talking about is he comes to us and he makes something which is either bad or neutral sound really, really good. And so we end up doing it because he makes it sound like it's a super good thing. And so an example we can give, Shaitan's not going to come to us through as Muslims, as dedicated Muslims, he's not going to come to us through the avenues of alcohol and that kind of thing. He knows that's a lost cause of. So he comes to us through the avenues that we like the most. For example, seeking knowledge, helping our community. A prominent example that we see today is that, we Muslims, we see a lot of our fellow brother and sisters moving away from religion because society is grasping them. And we're like, you know what? We should do something about it. We should try and help this community. Try to grab them all in again. But how? So Shaitan comes to you and you're like, maybe a way to help everybody is to understand what society is doing. When you understand what society is doing, then you're able to combat it. So why don't you go to university and start studying gender studies so that you understand what the enemy is thinking, what society is trying to put out there. So then after that, you can help your community. But what has Shaitan done here? What he's done is he's planted a seed. This seed is saying, you can go and study something which is not halal. Alright? And so what happens is now he's exposed you to information which can enter from everywhere. Because, with all these new sciences that are coming out, they come from a very logical perspective. They really, appeal to our sense of, logical thinking and that kind of thing. So it sounds pretty convincing, alright? And so he leads you to that because, he knows that's your weakness, which is very unfortunate. He's very, very good at what he does, alright? But general terms, he comes to us from our senses, alright? He makes bad food look and taste good. Makes love seem like it's all about the appearance, about a particular person rather than, who they are on the inside kind of thing. And he can manipulate the things that we listen to as well. And then finally get us into this world of, listening to music and that kind of thing. Alright? But this all happens if the shaitan takes control of our animalistic soul. So there is a way for us to solve that. And that way is by controlling it first. How do we control our animalistic soul? With our divine intellectual soul, which we'll speak about inshallah in a few lectures' time. So if our intellectual soul becomes the reins of our animalistic soul, shaitan can't get to us. And inshallah that's what we want to achieve. But then this stems a question. So if a creature has an animalistic soul and not a divine intellectual soul, are they always prone to shaitan? Are all animals evil? Surely not. And the thing is, it's not true. Because we have to return to remember the ascension, the stages of ascension. The purpose of an animal is to survive in this earth and to procreate. Why? So that they can serve and ascend. Alright? So to serve us so that they can ascend, or to ascend by developing other characteristics which are human-like. Let's say chimpanzees, with their ability to use tools. Alright? But for them to achieve this purpose, they don't need a human soul. They only need a divine intellectual soul. Alright? But you're probably thinking, well, we don't eat all animals. How can all animals serve us? And not all animals develop awesome things like chimpanzees do. Right? It's because they're very similar to, monkeys are very similar to humans. That's why they have that. But that's not true. I'll give you a very simple example, a fly. How is a fly beneficial? Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the fly a desire or this ability to like really hard, rotten food, rotten organic matter. So what a fly does, it eats all this rotten organic matter, cleaning our planet. It's a very useful thing for us. Alright? And then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created frogs with this desire to eat flies. And so they control the fly population. And so everything has different desires. They're still animals, but they have different desires which stem from the animalistic soul so that they can achieve their purpose on this planet. Alright? But for us, desires can be a distraction. And the reason that desires can be a distraction is because it's not only, it doesn't achieve our purpose. Alright? And so there's this hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salam, which was told to us by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, which says, إن الله عز وجل ركب في الملائكة عقلا بلا شهوة وركب في البهائم شهوة بلا عقل وركب في بني آدم كلتيهما فمن غلب عقله شهوته فهو خير من الملائكة ومن غلب شهوته عقله فهو شر من البهائم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave angels intellect with no desires and animals desires with no intellect. But he gave human beings both of these things. So if we are able to use our divine intellectual soul, the intellect that he gave us, to control our animalistic soul, the desires, we become better than angels. Because we have a challenge that angels don't. And we are able to pass that challenge. Whereas, if we waste this challenge, if our animalistic soul is not controlled by the divine intellectual soul, and in fact becomes the controlling factor of the divine intellectual soul, we become worse than animals. Because we have this ability to think, to make decisions, and we're deciding not to use it. Whereas animals don't have that. Okay? So that is a difference. So it's very important for us to recognize that we have this ability and to use it wisely. Alright? So the question so you're probably thinking, okay, well, desires still sound bad. They don't sound like this really, really good thing. So I'm going to ask you a question. Why are you here? Why are you listening to this lecture right now? Isn't it because you want to gain knowledge? Well, gaining knowledge is a desire. Something that you want to do because you desire it. Maybe because you desire to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or or you desire it because you want to understand someone. For whatever reason, you desire it. Or perhaps you're doing it because of the prizes. That's still a desire. Maybe not the best of desires, but it's still a desire and it's helping you to learn more. So it's a good thing, alright? Desires can be used for good. We need to recognize that, alright? But the thing is, they're a wild lion. And we need to be able to tame them with our intellectual soul. Or else, we will be lost. We will be worse than animals, alright? So, to finally conclude this lecture, I'll just give you the end thing, like, what is the purpose of our animalistic soul? And the purpose of our animalistic soul is so that we can live and survive in this world. That's the important thing. Because without it, we won't be here. صلى على محمد وعلى محمد. Alright, so the video clip for this week is going to be from The Fellowship of the Ring, which is one of the first Lord of the Ring film. We're going to give you a bit of context before we start watching. We have 2 clips for you to see.
So, Lord of the Rings, if you haven't seen it, centers around a ring, and the characters are trying to destroy this ring because it's the bad guy made it. And what happens is, if the ring has these dark powers, so if you're around it, you get influenced by it, and you really want to hold it for yourself, and so it becomes one of your most strongest desires to just take the ring for yourself. And so that has become a really big problem. And so if they do destroy the ring, they can just defeat the bad guy. However, it doesn't let them destroy it because they want to keep it for themselves.
Alright, so there are 3 important characters that you're going to see in these 2 clips. The first person is called Boromir, and he has light brown hair. So that's the first character. He is from a city which is pretty much at the force. The bad guy is attacking the city. So he's really, really desperate of finding a way to help his people. The second character who's important is called Aragorn, and he has dark brown hair. And he is trying to hide his identity. He's afraid of who he has to be, which is the king. Alright? Because he doesn't think he's worthy enough to be the king. And the last character is a small person, a hobbit, called Frodo. And he's the only person who can carry the ring. And the reason why is he's the only one who doesn't desire the ring. He doesn't really want it at this stage, alright? But the problem is that whoever carries the ring can be seen by the bad guy.
Especially when they wear it, only when they wear it, you know?
So we're going to show you these 2 clips. We want you to focus on the 2 characters, Boromir and Aragorn. So the guy with light brown hair and dark brown hair, alright?
And before we start the clip, just one thing is when they wear the ring, they become invisible. So that's a feature of the ring, and that's really important in the clip.
Alright, so
Boromir, it is a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt over so small a thing. Such a little thing. Boromir, give the ring to Frodo. As you wish. I fear not.
alright, so that's the first clip. And this is the second clip.
None of us should wander alone. You least of all. So much depends on you. Brother? I know why you seek solitude. You suffer. I see it day by day. You sure you do not suffer needlessly? There are other ways, Frodo. Other paths that we might take.
I know what you would say. It would seem like wisdom, but full of warning in my heart.
Warning? Against what? We're all afraid, Frodo. And to let that fear drive us to destroy what we have. Don't you see that is madness?
There is no other way.
I ask only for the strength to defend my people. If you will but let me the ring.
No,
Why do you recoil? I am no thief.
you are not yourself.
What chance do you think you have? They will find you. They will take the ring. And you will beg for death before the end. No! It is not your save I have come a chance. It could have been mine. It should be mine. Give it to me! Give it! No! Give it! No! I see your mind. You will take the ring to Sauron! You will betray us! You go to your death, and the death of us all! Curse you! Curse you! And all the half-blades! No. Frodo. Please. Frodo, I'm sorry! Frodo?
It has taken by me.
Where is the ring?
Stay away!
Frodo!
I swore to protect you. Can you protect me from yourself? Would you destroy it?
I would have gone with you to the end. Fire is mortal.
I know. Look after the others. Especially Sam. He will not understand.
Okay, صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So first of all, as we always do, we open it to the crowd. Today we only have one participant, so any thoughts? Because it's online.
The ring represents desire, And the others, like Boromir, were like jealous, so their desire were taking hold of them because they were jealous of Frodo because he had the ring and they wanted it. That's like the desire in a bad way. But after he attacked Frodo, that's what you would call it, he like was angry at himself, so that's constructive anger being shown there. Yeah.
What about Aragorn?
Aragorn was like, he was the opposite of Boromir. He showed contentment because he controlled his desire, as he didn't want the ring. He wanted Frodo to keep the ring. He wanted, like, but he didn't want his desire to take hold of him. Like, he had control in that sense.
Interesting. Alright. Should we flip forward one?
Yeah, alright. So the ring itself, what was interesting about it is so actually, wearing it was, because you saw when Frodo wore it, the bad guy instantly saw him. And so that shows how, so the connection between desires and the Shaitan, it's a direct connection that he can, like, it's a direct access point that Shaitan can use to get to us. Another thing that was interesting was whenever there was another person around the ring, around like Frodo, and they would try to touch the ring, it would like sort of like whisper their name. So it did it with Boromir, it did it with Aragorn as well. And it's like sort of like the whispers of Shaitan, you know, we always hear this phrase. It's sort of like a something that hints us and draws us towards wanting to do the things he wants and towards desires. So that was another interesting point, how they've actually represented so much of the Shaitan's actions through the rings.
Yeah. Another point which we'd like to make is that when Boromir was talking to Frodo, he's like, all I wanted is the strength to defend my people. So his desire, the Shaitan was accessing Boromir from his desire to do good. He wanted to help his people by using the strength of the ring against the enemy. But what was the enemy doing? They were using Boromir's good desires and drawing to the bad. So that's the Shaitan using the appearance and Boromir not recognizing that this is deception. He thought this was a reality. That's another point. And I think our audience said it all.
Yeah, very good. Well done.
Alright. So, inshallah, we're not entirely sure about the format of the next lecture, but inshallah, we can do a live one. If it is a live one, it will be on the Friday at 7:30, inshallah, at 47A Front Street. If not, we will update you during the week. If it's not going to be that way, we'll just have an online session as we did today, inshallah, and we'll also upload it on Saturday.
In terms of the quiz, we'll put the link to the quiz in the comment section for all the clips, both the video ones and the lecture ones. So if you want to access the quiz, just click on the link and you'll be straight away taken to the quiz and it'll start immediately. So just be ready when you click the button, because each person's only allowed to attempt it once. Yeah. Inshallah.
Alright.
Okay, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عجل.